I uncovered a rigid framework that all movies follow, with no exceptions. This video will break down how even Wednesday Season 1 adheres to Hollywood's storytelling secret. Check out the Videos tab to see if your favorite movie has been exposed. We start, as always, with a focus on our protagonist, specifically their personality, their inner conflict, and their situation. Wednesday deals with psychic visions, a new phenomenon, and she suffers an outcast boarding school where her parents were legends. Then her angsty schism with Morticia is revealed, as is her untamable spirit. Next, we examine where, why, and how our protagonists exist in their world, with a focus on why they don't quite fit in. Wednesday is contrasted against Enid, her polar opposite. Then Miss Thornhill explains the anti-outcast sentiment of Jericho. Bianca personifies the anti-Wednesday sentiment around Nevermore, while Dr. Kinbott promises an examination past her emotional defenses. Then a brief event happens, one that's never happened before. It's destined to lead all the characters away from their status quo. Everyone investigates the Addams family for their own reasons, making it impossible for secrets to remain hidden. Which leads us to examine the effect of that something new to the status quo, specifically what's different now and what remains the same. Wednesday opens up to Enid about a past trauma, and their bond begins. And Thing is discovered, who is coerced into being her assistant. Jericho's Nevermore hatred escalates to violence with weapons. Then Rowan tries to kill Wednesday to prevent a dark prophecy from coming true. We move along to the discovery that things are less than ideal, or else we explore how badly things are. Both scenarios are common. Rowan appears to return from the dead, which leads to his expulsion, and Wednesday's glower no longer works on Enid, who shines through it. She uncovers an ominous watermark on the torn page. Then Weems calls out the visions no one else knows about, who reveals to us that she's a morally dubious shapeshifter who could be anyone at any time. Next, our characters dedicate their effort to a specified goal, and this is always narrower in scope than what the third act will demand. Sheriff Galpin commits to uncovering the truth of the deadly attacks, while Enid pushes for unity and peace with the same stubbornness as her roomie. And Wednesday draws the line at doing bad, terrible things, and vows to prevent this prophecy. Then we run through a brief checklist of the main story elements that we can expect during this journey. The mystery around the monster attacks, classic whodunit style detective work, Nevermore Academy in all its outcast glory, and of course, the legacy of the Addams family. Which brings us to the brief event that launches our characters into the wild jungle of the second act. It's also called the oh shit moment. Wednesday discovers a hidden library and is promptly kidnapped. Oh shit. We follow our characters as they discover the new rules and expectations of their journey. These are always distinct to the narrative at play. Outreach Day puts Nevermore students in the thick of Jericho, and Wednesday learns of Joseph Crackstone and his history. She throws hands to protect her classmates, not for the final time. Then Jericho politics are touched upon, which create a tenuous status quo. Next, our characters showcase their ability to grow and progress, and this is typically an external or physical beat rather than internal or emotional. Wednesday bonds with Eugene, who becomes a Pugsley surrogate, and breaks into the meeting house to gather clues. She witnesses a very clear vision of Goody Addams and Crackstone, then discovers that the monster changes form into a human. Then our characters face legitimate and understandable reasons to deviate from their stated convictions, agendas, or desires. Wednesday is told that visions cannot be trusted, considering her lack of emotional maturity, and she and Weems argue about what's needed and what's right, and a montage confirms that pretty much everyone in town is actively hiding a secret. We endure the anxiety as our characters face an escalation of problems and complications. Wednesday and Thing break into a morgue and evade getting caught, who discover that they're chasing a seasoned serial killer. She finds that Xavier has been painting the monster with great detail, then suffers a normie girl interaction of asking a boy to a dance. Wednesday and Galpin argue over their own jurisdiction, and she deals with Tyler's hurt feelings while a killer runs loose. Next, our characters evolve internally or emotionally, and they do this by using elements of the plot or story which they've gathered and learned so far. Wednesday finds Eugene as a better sidekick than timid Enid, then leverages Galpin into performing a DNA test on her evidence. We're finally told the reason for Weems' hatred of Morticia, and Thing manipulates Tyler to give Wednesday a well-deserved break. Then our journey-weary characters come to terms with their ongoing struggles. Moments and elements of the first act are used to gauge their progress. Eugene is alone in the woods like he was told not to, same with the camper in Act 1, while Tyler reveals that he suffers from an old prank, like Wednesday in Act 1. Wednesday busts a move on the dance floor, as Enid did in Act 1, then receives a vision of Eugene in danger in the woods, just like Rowan was in Act 1. Enid finds a partner in Ajax, contrasting against her Act 1 loneliness, and Eugene loses his glasses during an attack, just like Rowan in Act 1, which results in a brief event that strikes at our protagonist's core conflict. Eugene is attacked, and Wednesday feels responsible, making the investigation into this sordid mystery ever more personal. And there's no turning back from here. We receive needed answers alongside our characters, which relate to both their external journeys and their internal conflicts. Wednesday spares nobody's feelings in the pursuit of answers, even airing out family business. Then Galpin is given what he needs to solve a decades-old murder case. Next, our characters complete their narrow scope objective, yet discover that their victory is shallow or altogether meaningless and must complete a wider scope objective. Wednesday hears Gomez's confession and believes him, but the cold case is only inching her closer to the prophecy. Galpin relishes in the victory of his arrest, but it's just as likely that the whole thing has been a setup. Wednesday connects with Gomez and Pugsley, but her tension with Morticia remains. Then our characters face an existential conflict that wounds their sense of self and identity or their physical journey. Wednesday and Morticia dig up Gates' grave for answers, but they're arrested and the Addams family is behind bars. Then Wednesday and Morticia confront the mayor to broker their release. We celebrate with our protagonist in light of an undeniable win, which is always related to the rebirth in some way. A surprise party reveals that Wednesday does indeed belong here, and she finally contacts Goody and has a proper conversation. Kinbott pumps up Wednesday by saying she was more than what Goody thought. Then she discovers the mayor at the Gates mansion, making him a prime suspect. Next, our characters suffer a grand loss. This is always connected to their newfound inability to quit their journey. Someone silences the mayor by way of vehicle-induced coma, and Wednesday's working relationship with Galpin fractures. Weems places Nevermore on lockdown, inhibiting the investigation. Then Wednesday manipulates Enid into helping, instead of just asking like a friend. Then we experience a thematic freefall, as the main story elements are ramped up and thrown into upheaval. Wednesday leads her friends into danger at the Gates mansion, and finds a hidden room behind a secret door. The mystery around Garrett and Laurel Gates deepens, while the monster creeps around downstairs, very nearby. Wednesday faces an authority she cannot so easily thwart, and Enid abandons Wednesday, leaving her in isolation, which forces us into a brief event that robs our protagonist of seemingly any hope of success. Someone has been stalking Wednesday since the pilot, revealing that she has her own obsessive fan, just as Morticia did, entwining them ever closer. We watch our characters realize that they cannot return to their first act selves, and they turn to face the wider scope objective. Uncle Fester reveals that Wednesday is hunting a hide, while Enid's absence weighs on them both. She confronts Xavier about her suspicions of his guilt, then realizes that she's after 2 killers, not just 1. Then our characters use the major swings of the story and their personal journeys to move towards the climax. Wednesday is granted her solitude when Enid officially moves out, and uncovers the therapy meetings with Xavier. She performs additional investigation work on Kinbott and Weems, then takes another rocky step into romance, and Wednesday faces the death of another beloved pet. Then the final confrontation plays out between our protagonist and characters against the antagonistic force. Wednesday confronts Kinbott about being the hide's master, and helps Galpin arrest Xavier for being the monster. Case closed. Enid returns and vows her allyship now that she's a better person. Then Wednesday faces the scary prospect of a budding romance, which culminates in a brief moment where our protagonist finally, and oftentimes metaphorically, overcomes their place in the Act 1 status quo. Wednesday opening herself up to intimacy provides her with the absolute proof of Tyler's guilt and her own misguided investigation. We experience the direct aftermath of the climax. This can give our characters a moment to reflect on the situation, or else wind down the action with a coda. Nevermore students rally around Wednesday to question a normie, and she fears that the destined destruction is about to be upon them, while no one will rally to her side after her torture session. Next, we touch base with additional characters, typically to contrast them against the new status quo. Weems is murdered by Thornhill, who resurrects Crackstone and invades Nevermore, briefly. Goody sacrifices her afterlife to save Wednesday. Then Enid wolfs out when it's time to protect a loved one. Tyler is tamed while Galpin witnesses it all, and Bianca joins up with Wednesday to defeat Crackstone. Then we conclude with a tight focus on our protagonist, specifically to contrast them against how we met them at the opening. Wednesday finishes her detective novel. Then Xavier gives her a phone to bring her into the modern era, and the stalker remains elusive, begging Netflix for a season 2. And there you have it. Wednesday Season 1 fits perfectly into Hollywood's storytelling secrets, and it demonstrates how long-form storytelling adheres to the same pattern when you strip away the periphery plotlines. If you enjoyed this breakdown, you should totally check out my theory video, where I lay out the evidence that Nathaniel Faulkner visited Hogwarts, then founded Nevermore Academy as a Ravenclaw sanctuary. And please, take care of yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.